The screech of tires and the sickening crunch of splintering would jolted me from my Saturday morning coffee. I was sitting at my kitchen table, enjoying the rare luxury of a slow weekend, when the sound of destruction shattered the peace of our quiet Oak Ridge neighborhood. I ran to my front window and felt my stomach drop. A silver Honda Civic was buried nose first in my fence. The entire front section of my carefully maintained picket fence reduced to kindling. Steam hissed from the car's crumpled hood, and pieces of white painted were scattered across my lawn like broken teeth. My heart pounding, I rushed outside in my slippers and pajama pants, phone already in hand. As I got closer, I recognized the car immediately. The dented bumper, the faded parking sticker from the community college, the tacky flame decals on the sides. It was Brandon Mitchell's car, Karen Mitchell's 22-year-old son. Brandon stumbled out of the driver's side, his face pale and his movements unsteady. The smell hit me before he even spoke. Alcohol, thick and unmistakable, even in the open air of my front yard. "Brandon, are you okay?" I asked, though anger was already building beneath my concern. "Don't move. I'm calling 911. His bloodshot eyes focused on me, and instead of the shame or fear I expected, his face twisted with indignation. "This is your fault," he shouted, pointing an unsteady finger at me. "Your stupid fence was in the way. I could sue you for this." I stared at him in disbelief. "My fence was in the way? Brandon, you drove into my property. You're clearly drunk, and you just destroyed my fence." "I am not drunk." He stumbled as he said it, catching himself on the hood of his car. "I had like 2 beers, maybe 3. That's nothing. And your fence shouldn't be so close to the road." My fence was a good 15 feet from the curb, well within my property line. Something I knew for certain because Karen had challenged it 2 years ago when I first installed it, claiming it ruined the aesthetic of the neighborhood. The HOA had sided with me after a survey proved I was well within my rights. I was already dialing 911 when I heard the front door of the Mitchell house slam open across the street. Karen Mitchell emerged like a force of nature, her blonde hair in curlers, wearing a velour tracksuit that had definitely seen better days. She stormed across the street, her face already red with fury before she'd even assessed the situation. "What did you do to my son?" She screamed at me, not at Brandon. "I heard a crash, and I just knew you'd be involved somehow." "Karen, your son just crashed his car into my fence while driving drunk," I said, trying to keep my voice level as I spoke to the 911 dispatcher. "Yes, I need police and possibly an ambulance. There's been a car accident on Maple Street, and the driver appears to be intoxicated." "How dare you?" Karen shrieked, getting so close to me that I could smell her coffee breath. "My Brandon is a good boy. He would never drink and drive. You probably distracted him. Was your fence even properly marked? Did you have reflectors? This is your fault." Brandon, emboldened by his mother's defense, nodded vigorously, then immediately looked like he regretted the motion, his face going green. "Yeah," he said, "your fence came out of nowhere. I demand you pay for the damage to my car." I looked at the demolished fence, then at the barely scratched Honda, then back at Brandon's dilated pupils and unsteady stance. "You want me to pay for your car? When you just destroyed MY fence while driving drunk." "He's not drunk," Karen insisted. "And yes, you absolutely should pay. This is your property, your responsibility. We'll be filing a claim with your insurance. And if you don't cooperate, I'll bring this up at the next HOA meeting. As vice president, I have influence, you know." Of course she did. Karen had been wielding her HOA position like a weapon for the past 3 years, using it to make life miserable for anyone who crossed her. She'd try to fine me for leaving my trash cans out 12 minutes past the pickup time. She'd reported my neighbor for having a non-approved mailbox. She'd even attempted to ban kids from playing in the street because their laughter was disturbing the peace. "The police are on their way," I said calmly, stepping back from Karen's aggressive proximity. "They can sort this out." "Good," Karen snapped. "They'll see that you're at fault here. My son is a victim." We stood in tense silence for the next 5 minutes, Karen continuing to berate me while Brandon leaned against his car, looking progressively more ill. A few neighbors had emerged from their homes, watching the scene unfold with barely concealed interest. Mrs. Chun from next door caught my eye and mouthed, "Do you need anything?" I shook my head, grateful for her concern, but confident that the police would handle this properly. The patrol car arrived with lights flashing but no siren. 2 officers stepped out, a tall African-American man with sergeant stripes and a younger Hispanic woman with sharp, observant eyes. "Good morning," the sergeant said, his voice professionally neutral. "I'm Sergeant Davis, and this is Officer Martinez. Who called 911? "I did," I said, stepping forward. "I'm Daniel Cooper. I own this property. That's my fence that was just destroyed, and that's the driver who crashed into it." I pointed at Brandon. Officer Martinez was already walking toward Brandon. Her eyes narrowed. "Sir, have you been drinking this morning?" "No," Brandon said automatically, but his swaying stance betrayed him. "He had maybe 1 beer," Karen interjected, rushing to her son's side. "Just 1. With breakfast. That's perfectly legal." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back," Sergeant Davis said firmly. "Are you the driver's mother?" "Yes, and I'm also the vice president of this neighborhood's HOA," Karen announced, as if that title granted her some special authority. "This man's fence is a hazard. It's too close to the road, and my son couldn't avoid it. We demand that he pay for the damages to my son's vehicle." Sergeant Davis looked at the fence, then at the road, then back at Karen with an expression of professional skepticism I found deeply satisfying. "Ma'am, that fence is clearly well within the property line, and your son would have had to leave the road entirely to hit it." Meanwhile, Officer Martinez was conducting a field sobriety test with Brandon, who was failing spectacularly. He couldn't walk a straight line, couldn't touch his nose with his eyes closed, and when asked to recite the alphabet, he made it to the letter M before getting confused and starting over. "Sir, I'm smelling alcohol on your breath," Officer Martinez said. "How much have you had to drink this morning?" Just a couple," Brandon mumbled, all his earlier bravado gone. "Maybe 4 or 5. But that was like an hour ago. I'm totally fine to drive." "An hour ago?" I interjected. "Brandon, it's 9:30 in the morning." Karen's face had gone from red to white. "Brandon, shut up. Don't say anything else." But it was too late. Officer Martinez was already pulling out her breathalyzer. "Sir, I'm going to need you to blow into this device. If you refuse, that an automatic license suspension and arrest." Brandon looked at his mother, panic clear in his eyes. Karen opened her mouth to object, but Sergeant Davis held up a hand. "Ma'am, if you interfere with this investigation, I will arrest you for obstruction. Please step back." Karen's mouth snapped shut, but her eyes were venomous as she glared at me, as if this was somehow my fault. Brandon blew into the breathalyzer. Officer Martinez looked at the reading, then showed it to Sergeant Davis. They exchanged a significant look. "Sir, you're registering a 0.18 BAC, Officer Martinez said. "That's more than twice the legal limit. You're under arrest for DUI." "What?" Brandon's voice cracked. "No, that can't be right. Your machine is broken." "Brandon Mitchell, you're under arrest for driving under the influence, reckless driving, and destruction of property," Sergeant Davis said, already pulling out his handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." "This is outrageous." Karen screamed. "You can't arrest him. He's a good boy. He was just trying to get to work." At 9:30 on a Saturday morning, I couldn't help but ask, "Where exactly does he work, Karen?" She ignored me, instead grabbing Sergeant Davis's arm. "I'm calling my lawyer. This is police brutality. You're targeting my son because of that man's lies." "Ma'am, remove your hand from my arm right now," Sergeant Davis said, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "You are very close to being arrested yourself." Karen let go but continued her tirade as Officer Martinez handcuffed Brandon, who had started crying, actual tears streaming down his face as he realized the severity of his situation. "Mom, help me," he sobbed. "Don't let them take me. This is all your fault." Karen whirled on me, her finger jabbing toward my chest. "You distracted him. You put that fence there. My son wouldn't have crashed if you hadn't. Ma'am. Sergeant Davis's voice cut through her hysteria. Your son was driving with a BAC of 0.18. He's lucky he only hit a fence and didn't kill someone. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time to step back, or you're going to join him in handcuffs. The fight seemed to drain out of Karen all at once. She stood there, trembling with rage and fear, as Officer Martinez guided Brandon toward the patrol car. Wait, Brandon said suddenly, turning back to look at me. What about my car? You have to pay to fix my car. Your fence damaged it. I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. Your car? Brandon, you're going to jail for DUI. You destroyed my fence. Your car is the least of your problems. Sergeant Davis walked over to examine the Honda, shining his flashlight into the front seat. His expression darkened. Officer Martinez, we've got open containers in the vehicle. Multiple beer cans, at least 3 empty bottles of vodka. That's not his. Karen said desperately. Someone must have planted those. This is a setup. Ma'am, these bottles are warm, and one is still partially full, Sergeant Davis said. Your son has been drinking heavily this morning while driving. He's lucky to be alive, and he's very lucky he didn't hurt anyone else. He turned to me. Mr. Cooper, you'll need to file a police report for property damage. The driver's insurance should cover your fence repairs. Though given the DUI, they may deny the claim. You might need to take him to small claims court. What about his car? I asked. We're impounding it as evidence, Officer Martinez said. It'll be towed within the hour. You can't do that. Karen shrieked. That's my son's car. How is he supposed to get to work? How is he supposed to live his life? He should have thought of that before driving drunk, Sergeant Davis said flatly. And ma'am, your son isn't going to work any time soon. He's looking at jail time, massive fines, license suspension, and mandatory alcohol education. The DUI alone is a misdemeanor, but combined with the property damage and the open containers, the district attorney might pursue felony charges. Karen's face crumbled. For just a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered every petty complaint she filed. Every time she'd wielded her HOA power to make someone's life harder, every instance where she protected Brandon from consequences instead of teaching him responsibility. This was the inevitable result of years of entitlement. As they loaded Brandon into the patrol car, still crying and protesting his innocence, a tow truck arrived. The driver got out, assessed the Honda, and nodded. Yep, this one's totaled, he said cheerfully. Front axle's bent, radiator's cracked, engine's probably seized. Insurance is going to love this. It's not totaled, Karen insisted. It's barely damaged. You people are all incompetent. The tow truck driver just shrugged and began hooking up the Honda. I stood in my ruined front yard, watching the car that had destroyed my fence being towed away, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Justice wasn't always swift, but when it came, it was beautiful. Sergeant Davis handed me his card. File your report online within 48 hours. Include photos of the damage, and keep any receipts for repairs. If you have security cameras, download the footage. I do, I said, pulling out my phone. I've got the whole thing on video. Karen's head snapped toward me. You recorded this? My doorbell camera records everything, I said. Has for 2 years now, ever since someone kept filing false HOA complaints about me. I looked pointedly at Karen. Her face went pale as the implication sank in. Video evidence of her son driving drunk, crashing into my fence, and then demanding I pay for his damages. Evidence of her trying to protect him, threatening me, lying to police. I'll see you at the next HOA meeting, Karen, I said pleasantly. I think the board will be very interested in how their vice president handles family accountability. She opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and fled back to her house. As a patrol car drove away with Brandon in the back seat, and the tow truck hauled off his destroyed Honda, my neighbor began to approach, offering sympathy and support. Mrs. Chun touched my arm gently. We all saw what happened, she said, and we're all willing to testify if you need us to. Thank you, I said, meaning it. My fence was destroyed. My Saturday was ruined. But watching justice unfold seeing entitlement finally meet consequences. That was worth every splinter of broken wood. Brandon wanted me to pay for his car. Instead, he paid with his freedom, his license, and his criminal record. And as for Karen's HOA power, something told me her vice presidency wouldn't survive the next board meeting. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock on your door. Sometimes it crashes through your fence and takes itself directly to jail.